what did dying teach you about fear and trusting yourself?
My catchphrase, is you already are that which you seek, period.
For generations, women were shamed for trusting themselves, sensing things before they happen, and believing in their own power. No one encouraged them to embrace it until now. Welcome to Trust Yourself.
Hi friends, I'm Elise, but my sister calls me Sissy, and that's my sister Heidi. Welcome to Trust Yourself. If you've tuned into episode 16, you know that we dipped into the topic of near-death experiences, also known as NDEs. Today, we're also going to be talking about NDEs again, but it's a little different because this time we're not just exploring theories on near-death experiences. We are talking to someone who has lived one. Or scratch that. She died and experienced it, I should say, and she came back to tell the tale. Joining us today is Dr. Mary Helen Hensley, a healer, a chiropractor, best-selling author, and motivational speaker. And let me tell you, if she doesn't motivate you to get up and do something with your life, man, I honestly don't know who can.
What are you doing wrong?
You must not be listening. No.
Turn your speaker up a little bit.
Right? But she's been living in Ireland for the past 26 years. However, she's originally from Martinsville, Virginia. Dr. Hensley endured a harrowing car accident in December of 1991. And today she will not only be talking about her incredible experience after death, but also her very unique childhood with otherworldly experiences. And now, as a healer, she is simply here to remind you that you already are that which you seek. Her journey has taken her from the edge of death into the hearts of audiences across the world. And since then, she's been on many incredible and well-known podcasts. So today we are super honored that she is here on ours. And so without further ado, let's bring Dr. Mary Helen Hensley into the conversation. Oops, I said without further ado, but I do actually have one more ado. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. In this episode, we do talk in some detail about Mary Helen's passing in a car accident. So some of it does get pretty heavy. So feel free to skip ahead if you need to. Just do what feels right for you and we'll still be here. Okay, now bring her in. Welcome, Mary Helen. We are so excited to have you here today. We have been watching all of the NDEs, all of the near-death experiences, and yours was definitely a story that stood out to us. And actually, one of the first ones that got Heidi hooked on near-death experiences and learning all about this. So we're so excited to have you here.
I swear, it started my whole spiritual journey. It just opened up a portal in me.
Yeah. I mean, it's remarkable enough that you've experienced a near-death experience, but your story goes even deeper. From childhood, you've had extraordinary moments like out-of-body experiences, encounters with people that have already passed on. So not too many people have the same story. So honestly, Mary Helen, you are just special.
Can I stop you there and tell you something that happened yesterday?
Yeah.
Because it's so funny now that you just said that you're just so special. So I am in Martinsville, Virginia doing hospice with Mom right now. And so I forgot that the accent's real. It is, I've had so much fun, making fun of my own homegrown accent. But this man says to me yesterday, one of my patients, and he was just like, you know what? I've been looking at your stuff and you are so spatial. And I went, thank you. I have been trying so hard my work with frequency, like that whole time space thing. And I'm like, spatial is the nicest compliment that I have ever gotten. And he was like,
spatial. Oh,
spatial. I was like, dude, I'm elevated. I am spatial. I loved that. And
I am super spatial.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
You are spatial and special.
I'm so spatial.
You check all the boxes. I love it.
Sorry to interrupt, but I had to interject.
I think that's hilarious. So if you could take us back to what your childhood looked like and how you did feel different from everyone.
All right. Yeah. So my father would always refer to me when I was young as promised. And the reason is because when my mom was pregnant with me in that first trimester, she had a very severe case of German measles. And so, it was like we're tootling down the road last year and she's like, I was supposed to abort you 6 times. And I was like, what? Okay. And so in 1968, when they found out, that she was pregnant, there was not a lot you could do other than they were like, this baby is not going to be okay, period. We want to give you that choice. And so my dad being a minister, mom being a minister's wife, they went home and he prayed about it, whatever. And he had the most bizarre experience. And what makes this so unique and very authentic for me is it is so outside of the box with which, in which he practiced life. And he had these two beings who appeared to him, and he called them celestial beings. Those were his words. And I don't know that he could bring himself to say anything else because they were not angels. They did not have wings, but he knew they were good, and he knew they were there to bring information. They were Gabriels. They were heralds. And so basically they said, not only is she going to be okay, but you and Helen are going to have to foster a very unusual ability. And that was kind of it, Dad. And so they made that choice. And so because of that experience, my dad always would say to me, you'll promise. Whenever I'd get upset, whenever anything would, go on, he was like, don't worry about it. You're promised. And he always took that intervention that allowed them to choose to keep the baby, that allowed them to move forward through the pregnancy with the confidence that things were going to get a little bit different. And, one of my favorite stories is when I'm like 4 or 5 and we had what I always refer to as the kitchen table talk. My dad was about to lose his nut. Like he was like upset. And he calls me in and he sits down, and he was a big old bodybuilder, football coach, the big booming voice. And Mom was sitting at the table, and I was little. I was like 4. And he's like, Sugar, do you know the difference between alive and dead? And I'm like, because what was unnerving them so is that my best friend in the world was my grandfather, Judge. He was a surgeon from Kentucky. He worked with Edgar Casey. He was just this really cool dude. And it was my mom's father. And I would talk all the time about what Judge and I talked about last night, what we did. But Judge had been dead since I was 1. So my dad is like freaking out going, do you know what it means, the difference between alive and dead? And I look back now and I go, gosh, that must have been so hard. But nowadays it is so easy because of the technological advances we have. It's like I'm sitting, you're Minnesota, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Minnesota and Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking in present time. And even though you are a projection of yourselves, I am assuming with all that I have, that there is a 3D flesh and blood incarnation sitting in your collective studio spaces.
Yeah.
So that's a leap of faith I'm willing to take. Yet how we're speaking, how we're sharing information right now is holographic. It's a projection. It's a Wi-Fi imagery. And my brain is filling in all the gaps. You're not here in flesh and blood. I can't touch you. But, all those little fun bits and pieces in my brain are now filling in all the light and filling in all the gaps. And you are real-time people with me. It's so easy to stand up in front of audiences now and explain how you talk to dead people. It's like, because when you start talking about, well, the photons in my light, or the cones and rods in my light is seeing that they don't get that. But whip an iPhone into the conversation and they're like, oh. So like, this is the optimum time to be the weirdo in the room, because like there are now so many amazing ways to explain how you see things.
I've never heard it explained that way, and I absolutely love it. It makes
Doesn't it
so much
land?
sense.
Aren't you
It
just
totally
like, oh,
lands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when my parents, who have no reference, like we're still in black and white TV, and they're like, what do you mean he's like there? And I'm like, he's there. Can you touch him? Yes. Because in my 4-year-old head, I'm like, that's real. That's solid. And it reminds me of, there used to be a show back in the day called Quantum Leap. And that dude would, go around and jump timelines. And his mentor was a hologram, but he was there. He was real. He was funny. He had the suit. And so that would be the best way I could have described Judge being in my presence there. But when Judge and I traveled, I would then go out of body. And I didn't realize at the time that's what I was doing.
And you were 4 doing this?
I was 4 at that stage. Oh, yeah. But then I became quite adept at doing that, because I remember getting we have some weird trend in our family where, like, Mom has nearly died anytime she's ever tried to become vaccinated with anything. I have a sibling who's the same. I got my tetanus booster when I was like 9, maybe. And I'd been left it was a Friday night. Dad was coaching. So mom had left me with babysitters because I was really unwell. And she just thought I was a little sluggish after getting this tetanus booster or whatever. I was like dead as a doornail because I remember the guy coming out, carrying me into the house. And I'm really kind of listless at that stage. And they put me on the couch and mama just said, she really wasn't concerned because she just thought, they're like, oh, they could have a little reaction after the vaccine and feel a little fluey or whatever. That guy makes me, I'll never forget it, a paper hat, like a triangle pirate hat out of newspaper, and he's folding it. And I'm like, but my eyes are closed. How am I seeing this? And I remember in that moment that I'm looking back at my body. And this is different than astral travel because in astral travel, when you're having an OBE, when you're out of body like this, rarely do you look back on your own form. But when you are approaching into a near-death experience, most of the time people will record about seeing their own body and going, is that me? That looks so weird. Is my butt that big? That's that experience that people are having because they've never seen themselves in the 3D before.
Yeah.
360 all the way around. And so I remember looking down and I was like, oh no, something wrong. Because having been out of my body on numerous occasions with my grandfather, this didn't feel the same. There was a weird pitch behind it. There was like a sharp, did you ever, anybody out there who's ever had a migraine, the prodrome that comes, that ringing in the ear that comes before you get the migraine, that's that sharp kind of,
yeah.
It's like that. It's that kind of, I was like, this isn't the same as when I'm out with him. And that was probably my first kind of realization that there was a difference between the spirit leaving the body of its own free will and that something kicks it out of the body and it's struggling to, make its way back in. So, that kind of stuff was happening from the time I was small. I was having dreams and Dad was a minister and he was also doing a lot of funerals. There was plenty of time. I can just see my mom just, she got her little tea towel and she's drying the dishes as you do. And I'm just in here talking to the dead person and helping myself write his eulogy, can you imagine?
Oh my gosh. So you helped him write the eulogy based off what this person was saying.
I remember this guy, this is in one of my books, so I can speak for, Turner Weaver. And Mr. Weaver was so lovely. And my dad had grown up with Mr. Weaver. And Daddy was really upset because Mr. Weaver had, I think, if I recall correctly, he had some kind of throat cancer or whatever, but he lost his ability to speak. And he had said, Dick, I want you to help me write my eulogy. There's things I want to say. And there was an emergency turn of events, and Mr. Weaver got taken out of town. I don't know if he was airlifted out, whatever, but my dad didn't get to his side in time, and it bugged him.
Oh.
I can recall, I'm looking at the kitchen table right now where he was sitting. And he was just distraught. And there's Mom behind the counter and I'm eating my porridge, whatever, at the other end of the table. And there was my dad trying to write this eulogy and he'd missed it. And so I went, Daddy, Mr. Weaver's here. And he was like, what? And I was like, he wants to help write this eulogy. And my dad was he was nearly in tears because, he was genuinely upset for having not been able to fulfill his old friend's wish. And I'm like, well, it's just going to come a little bit differently, Daddy. And he shows up and he goes, the first thing he says to me is, remind Dick, just in case he doesn't know it's me, that when he worked for Coca-Cola when he was in high school, and he would bring me bottles of Coke in exchange for not just any milkshake, but his signature strawberry milkshake. I said, Dad, Mr. Weaver would like for me to let you know that it's really him. And he was like, okay. And I told the story and he was just like, doesn't matter how many times it happened. I don't believe it. I can't believe. And then he goes, there was they had their posse, their group that had grown up together. And one of them had a nickname. And he said, and he also wants me to tell you that her nickname was Miss Mousy. And he was like, okay. And so that's what childhood was like. It was that kind of, it was just normal. But my father would have to check in and go, is this actually happening?
Yeah. That would be me too. I'm very open to this stuff and excited, but I also am I think very logically.
Show me. I need some proof.
Give me the proof. But I love that. I absolutely love it. And honestly, it reminds me of that TV show called Not Dead Yet with Gina Rodriguez. You are literally Gina Rodriguez writing eulogies for people that have passed away.
Well, all of Hollywood is based on truth somewhere.
It
Yes.
absolutely is. Absolutely. Gosh. So that's an amazing childhood. And it sounded like, because our dad's also a pastor. And when you talk about spirituality, it's nice that it seemed like he was very open and accepting.
Well, he had no choice. Like, this stuff's happening in front of his eyes because, like,
Yeah.
I've always said to the people who are like, is this of God? I'm like, why is it that we can have things that are written about 2,000 years ago that were totally miraculous, but you don't believe it can happen in modern day?
Yes.
I'm like, that just totally does not make sense to me. And, we were smack in the middle of the Bible Belt. And even though my dad wasn't a holy roller, his sermons were all about football.
Oh, funny. Same with our dad.
So is our dad, actually. He's a
Yeah.
Presbyterian pastor, but like obsessed with the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Hawkeyes.
And so
Yeah.
the Hawkeyes would always work their way into
They
a
always
sermon.
got in there. Martinsville Bulldogs were, paving the way to heaven. But it was easier for people to digest because he liked the parables, and that's literally what the Bible is full of. The New Testament is literally just parable after parable after parable. The alchemy, it's like, however people take that water into wine, he really turned it into it. I'm like, guys, it's alchemy. It's lead into gold,
Exactly.
water into wine. But anyway, we get hung up on what works first in that moment. But talking to people then about growing up in this kind of environment, when I did, there was a lot of what, if we were going to have to put a name or label on it, there's a lot of religious abuse with people.
Yes.
Because the way religion is used and it seeps into conversation and the guilt. And I even realized, there was mom, she'd had a stroke, people, the church ladies bring the food. And I was like, oh my gosh, a lot of my eating things, because I love food. And I've always had to be very conscious and careful about how much I eat because I could just keep eating. And it's because Miss Jones would bring pimento sandwich squares to the door and you were going to have one while she was standing there. And I hate pimento,
Yes, because that's the nice
But
thing
you
to
were
do.
taught that you did things in order to make those people around you feel good. And I'm like, how interesting. Or somebody would come in who's not the way that we were. We didn't do the kind of, my mom's in here watching Murder, She Wrote, not church services. Just because she was a preacher's wife doesn't mean that her life was consumed by that.
Right.
But people coming in and then assuming and, holding hands and doing some prayer that's like a fire and brimstone. And I'm just standing there observing, going, how many times growing up did we smile kindly while that kind of thing was imposed on us?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't like that. That makes you're in my house. You didn't ask, was that okay? That doesn't make me feel good. And because I'm too nice, I'm letting you do it. But get out, I rebuke thee. Get out my door with demon shit. I hate that stuff.
Yes.
And so I realize here, I'm going, wow, this is incredible. The way that we've been brought up, and where is the space for the weird child who comes in who sees the world differently? I'm literally looking through a completely different lens. And the gift of being born to parents who are so firm in their own personal beliefs and watching them have to make room for that which they knew to be true because it was happening in their own home.
Right.
So it was extraordinary, and it was really a gift to be here and to be part of that.
That's so beautiful. I absolutely love that. It sounds very supportive, whether they had to believe it or not. It's still, they're supportive. And I love that.
While I was promised and while Dad was always wonderful about, I was so spatial in my house, but we didn't talk about it outside the house because my dad really had a morbid fear that I would be either ridiculed, exploited. He really was like, let's just keep this to us. But in doing that, what happened was my siblings didn't know because remember, they're a bit older than me. So they didn't know. So I look like a whack job when I write my first book. Can you imagine? They're like, what?
Wow.
That didn't happen. That wasn't that, you can imagine how that must have looked to them.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting dynamic. But I go through those teenage years and I'm like, now it was more focused into dreaming. I would dream something, it would happen. My precious bulldog, Otto von Bismarck, I dreamt his death and then it happened. And then I dreamt that the person up the street died and then it happened. And it was kind of like, this sucks. You're you're a teenager. And so coming out of that, when I went off to college, I had come out of the suppression years. So I get into this new environment out from the appearances veil where we need to be conscious of what other people think and what other people are looking at. We're the minister, we're the da-da-da, And I get out from that, and it was like something was lifted off me, and then everything just started exploding exponentially. There was the resident spirit at the school that made immediate contact.
They're like, hey, Mary Helen is free, guys. Let's go talk to her.
She's here. Yeah. Yet, I still wasn't really using it in any way that was of service. And this is where life got very interesting, too, because it was like I had set up for myself on another level. If you haven't reached adulthood, and in the world we live in, 21 is deemed you're reaching adulthood. If you have not learned how to use this stuff, by the time you're 21, something big is going to take place. And it was the car accident. So obviously, I did not pass that test. I did not receive $200 and go. I had to go through the car accident. And that's why I laugh when everybody's like, oh my God, you're so enlightened. No, I was so dumb that I didn't use the stuff that I had in an appropriate way, that I had to literally break my neck, smack my head through,
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah. So take us to that day and kind of explain the series of events that led up.
In the South, when you are dating the same guy that you are, if you're still dating at graduation, your mom's like picking out China. You're going to marry that guy.
Yep.
And so I'm like, okay, it's the 80s, rock on. We're going to move to Charleston and live in sin. But then eventually, we're going to get engaged. And so we had graduated in that May, and it was December 14th, and I was working for a sign company mopping floors. And so that's what I was doing at the time. Well, we were having our Christmas party. It was Charleston. It was hot. It was 1991, December 14th. So I lived here, and this was this huge highway going into Charleston, South Carolina, Highway 17. And I came down 2 miles the end of this road, stoplight. I'm sitting at the stoplight. Well, my light finally turns. Now I'm crossing 1 lane of traffic, 2 lanes of traffic, 3 lanes of traffic. But this old man who was driving a big tank of a car decided that he was going to put the pedal to the metal, and he pushes down and blows through the red light right as I'm at that point. And I'm so grateful for him, because without him, I'd have no story. I wouldn't be sitting here with you guys.
You would not.
And as he came, started coming towards me, this is when my entire life changed. It was like somebody flicked a switch. And now all of a sudden, the music is playing in the background, and you're like moving in slow motion. I'm like, and my whole world was shifting. And suddenly it was like something was coming off going, do you remember how this works? And I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. Okay, I've done this before. This is no big deal. I'm good. And I am looking at him coming towards me. Everything now is at a crawl.
Wow.
At a crawl or standstill. It was just like time stopped. And I was so conscious of the fact that I could make a choice right then. All right, are you done? No judgment either way. It's good. You can stay, you can go. So in that moment, I was very aware that that choice belonged to me. It wasn't being made for me by somebody else. I am realizing in that moment, I am architect of my own reality. Holy shit. And I'm
That's
like,
so cool.
Okay, so aware that I'd done this before. I was like, just, how do I explain to you? The information hadn't been there, and then it was. Oh, we've lived before. We die before. We stay here as long as we feel like it's necessary. I laugh when people talk about, human beings are trapped as slaves in this unconscious carnation. Please. Maybe somebody is, but that's not my experience, coming in and out of that. And when you step out and you realize, I'm like, oh, put me back in, coach. I like it there. This place is nuts.
Facts.
And that's my jam. I like that,
Yeah.
Give me all the weirdness, like all the people who are the non-believers, all the people who are the naysayers and all that. Oh my God, I'm in my element. But so, there I am, and this car is inching towards me, and I'm like, okay, next thing I know, the music changes, and it goes from this kind of it was this low drone. I always compare it to like a bagpipe drone, And I'm up and over and I'm looking down at where the accident is taking place.
Because you left your body before.
I left my body and I'm now above looking down. And, in that moment when I realized when everything first slowed down, I was still inside. Here's what makes this near-death experience kind of spatial, is that I was aware in that moment that I had the choice to carry on, to live or die, and that there was nothing to fear with this. This was just an experience. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I came out of my body before it was dead. This is where that's where it gets kind of funky because, people have this kind of near-death experience. And it's like my friend Jim Bruton, who just casually died in a plane crash, no big deal. And he's somehow, he's doing a documentary that I was just in that's going to be coming out soon. I'll send you the deets on that because he's amazing. He's so cool. And, Jim had no recollection of that. It was like, boom, he was crashing in the plane. And then his experience takes place after. So what's weird for me is that I am like, oh, I am not going to stay in this body while that car hits me. I remember making that choice. So I go up and out and then everything speeds back up. And now I'm watching that car hits me. My car folds in half. My head goes, I got hit 75 miles an hour. Jeez. Head goes through the window. I get to watch my neck break and I'm like a little rag doll hanging in the car. Car spinning through the intersection and then it finally comes to a halt. And as you can imagine with all those lanes of traffic, everybody's screeching and freaking out. And this is when I noticed something peculiar. I look back and a couple of cars behind me had been a girl that I went to college with who was my suite mate. Charleston's like 350,000 people at the time. Like how she happened to be 2 cars behind me. But I remember looking and her name was Mim and I was like, Mim, fine. Because, it was like bad enough when you see somebody smashed up and then when you realize that you know them.
Yeah.
I could feel the thunder of her heart banging off a rib. No joke. It wasn't my emotion, but I could suddenly feel her emotion. And I was like, I'm good. But that was a really unusual aspect of it because it was like, I'm like, okay, is this my new superpower? I can suddenly feel everybody. You talk about being empathic. I can feel her response to seeing me dead. And then I got to watch the weird lady who came up. This is my favorite part. The windows had blown out of the car. She'd written down her name and phone number and like, there's a dead girl in the car and she like leaves her name on the front.
What?
I'm like, what was she thinking? Like she was late
like as a witness? Like
I'm like, where was so important that she took the time to write the number? And then I'm like, this is so weird. But then I remember the guy in uniform who got there. So he must have been the first cop who arrived on the scene. And he reaches in through the passenger side and turns the engine off. And I remember him thinking this engine's going to blow. And it's like I could hear him thinking that. So I see him doing that. And now at this stage, I'm looking, and there's me in my little bright red Bermuda shorts and a Santa Claus t-shirt. I had the little Swarovski jingle bell around my neck Mom had given me to wear through the holiday season. And the seat was folded up underneath me. So I'm like jacked up, and I'm pinned. And there's glass. There was glass stuck in my legs. It was like up my shorts. And I remember looking at this and I'm like, my head is hanging at this really freaky angle. And I'm like, that looks broken. But I had no pull towards that body. And this is where my best description so far is, that's what I was telling you, modern day, it makes it so much easier to describe things. My best description is you're outside, you're nasty, you're filthy, your clothes are dirty, you're sweaty. You walk in the back door, you throw the clothes into the washing machine, and you go take a great shower. You are not thinking about those clothes. Just not.
Right.
They're just clothes. It's just a pair of jeans. It's just a sheet, you're not thinking about them. And that was exactly how it felt being out. You were so separate from that body. That's a feeling I will never, ever, ever shake. No matter how real it gets down here. The idea that I am and my body are two very separate things That's like, I am the driver of this vehicle. This vehicle is here in service to my soul, not the other way around. And we've been part of the whole glam here is convincing us, we're human beings seeking our spirituality. Absolutely not. We are dynamic, omnipotent, eternal, spiritual beings who are here to get down and dirty. And we're taught when we get here, avoid everything uncomfortable. Let's don't be uncomfortable. Let's don't do anything that, that pushes the limits or pushes the bounds or that we might. And I'm going, that's exactly what we came here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the ultimate thrill-seeking adventure. And they say, you're so flippant about life and death. Well, yes, I am. Well, yes, I am. But it is one of those things where I get to make jokes and be the stand up for death because I come in here and I've still got to live here. But now I know all this stuff. And if you think that's easy, you may think again.
Yeah.
Because I am sitting here. It is like, I'm like, I love everybody. Oh my God. I want you to get it. And I have to sit back and allow the lesson to unfold. Yawn. I went, come on, you got fun. So yeah, that's one of the perks of the job is, knowing that that's the case, but you also have to kind of zip it sometimes. And that's why in healing, I say, I'm not coming in going, you're healed. I can do that. And I did do that in the very beginning. And I got smacked down in about 3 months flat. They let me play and then they schooled me.
Like
and
Spirit did?
Not how, yes. I came back after that accident with an ability to heal anything. And I was so special. And I got a couple of minutes to play until, are you finished? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally taking away everybody's opportunity to learn why they got sick in the first place.
Oh, wow. That's profound.
Thank heavens that happened in my early 20s. So 33 years later, I'm doing it the right way, which is, I'll dance with them, but I'm also extremely blunt. And it's why I can get away with a lot of stuff too, because I don't get offended. I know I am offensive to some people in their story because it's really uncomfortable to hear that kind of depth of truth. But I carry that, there's certain people who carry weight well. Well, I carry that well. I can handle that. I can handle the projection of their discomfort with the truths that I speak. And is my truth the same for everybody? Probably not, but there are some universal truths, and then we've got a lot of playroom in between. Does everybody have the positive out-of-body experience that I had in the death? Because we didn't even get to where the music changes again, and now I'm hearing this celestial music behind me.
So first it was this lower frequency vibration you said, and then it changed
the bagpipe drone.
Yeah, and then you're saying it changed into something really, I think I heard you call it before the symphony of the spheres. And I actually have a friend who has died before and came back, and he doesn't remember too much, but that he remembers. It was the music. But he said it kind of reminded him of something like Jimi Hendrix mixed with, I don't know, like classical music and very like...
Purple Haze by the Philharmonic.
Yeah,
right. Perfect. I'd listen.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, is that significant and unique for each individual, do you think?
The music of the symphony is the same, but we each have our own soloist is the best way I can describe that.
So cool. So his was Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Tailored to him.
In Heidi years, it's probably going to be Taylor Swift.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's how it works. And so then when I got into that space, this is when, and I just bathed. That's the best way I can describe it. It was like I was bathing. It was, again, that same thing. I'm not thinking, oh my God, are you pining away for your body? What body? Was I alive? Sorry. You're so gone past it. The last thing you're thinking about, you didn't miss out on anything. You're just like, I'm here. Hey. And you're just cleaning off all the muck. Because being human is very dense. It's very 3D. It's very dirty. The meat suit is gross. And you get out of that and you remember that you put yourself into that, and it's like, shake it off. And it was in that moment that I had two beings that kind of came out of the atmosphere, and these were my guides. This is when I realized, oh my God, guys, we've got guides. And everybody has them. And here's a big misconception is people think, oh, this one, Abraham's been following me since the day I was born, and it's done everything with... You do have a primary, guide or set of guides, but throughout your life with all the individual experiences that you've had, there are different guides that will come in and out of your story. They're like teachers that can be there for 5 minutes or 50 years. The guide will come forward when needed in their area of expertise.
I love this.
So now let's get to the part that blew my socks off.
Yeah,
Please do.
So now I am in the life review. So yes, folks, that does happen. And no, you have nothing to worry about.
I loved life review.
It was so crazy. It's like those guides were there with their arms around me and the bucket of popcorn going, all right, let's watch. And this is where you guys appreciate being preacher's daughters, that this preacher's daughter is looking around going, but wait a minute, this is where they told me the judgment was going to happen. Yep. And I'm like, it's me, it's them, nobody else here.
You're your only judge, baby.
Yes. And I'm watching this screen unfold around me, and it's like an IMAX of 360. It reminds me, do you know what the closest we've got now? The Sphere. I'm dying to do an afterlife adventure in the Sphere and show people.
Yes.
I would love to recreate my death experience in the Sphere.
Oh my God, Mary Helen, I will buy all the tickets.
Can you imagine? Yes. I'm like, if anybody knows anybody, hit me up.
Please.
Yep.
Because I'm like, would that be so cool?
Oh, it'd be incredible.
Because that's what the life review was like, standing in the center of that. And like the kitchen table talk is happening over here simultaneously to, I'm dressed as P.T. Barnum with a little monkey puppet winning Living History Day in the 7th grade. And then I'm over here getting my driver's license. All of it is happening simultaneously. And not one of them has more of my attention than the other. Wow. So when you're like, yeah, but this was really hurtful. This was really awful that, this thing that happened to you and all that. So was the spelling bee. Talk about putting life in perspective, because you're looking around and I'm going, wait a minute, where's the guy? Where's the dude with the beard? Where's the gavel? And I'm like, it fills me up. I'm full for the day now. Like, it fills me up when I think about the fact that I'm looking at this incredible life unfolding around me, and I created it.
Yeah.
Therefore, the only one who can judge it is me. And I am looking at myself with such compassion. This is the beautiful part. Because you know how it's like, oh, my hair, oh, I'm too fat, oh, I'm too... It doesn't even exist in that moment. You're looking at yourself with such awe. And that's why, if I've had people over the years, I've been doing this for so long, and they're like, she's a bit full of herself. I am. I like me.
Yes, we should love ourselves.
You should like you.
We should be in love with ourselves.
You should be in love with yourself.
Yes.
You are so brave that you came in here, took on that story, that disease, that father, that whatever. Like, I'm going, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. And so it's kind of like a woman I can describe, after giving birth to 2 girls, I was like the warrior. What was her name? Warrior princess.
Oh,
Xena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where she was just badass.
Oh, hell yeah. I remember that.
And I was like, gave birth, and I was like, my body just did that.
Yes.
You've got this huge stomach rolling off of you, and your boobs are like in your kneecaps, and you're just like, and everything that everybody has told you about what a woman looks like or what a woman should feel like, and it's like, you're like empowered. I just became a living portal for that baby to come out and experience life. I am a badass.
Preach.
Yeah, so that was a beautiful part of that. But, back to when I was standing in that life review and watching everything unfold around me, you just have this gratitude, absolute gratitude for the life that you've chosen, everything that's unfolded around you, the people that you've interacted with, and every person who has ever crossed your path, no matter who they are, no matter what they think, what you think they've done to you or whatever. You suddenly have this awareness, well, gosh, that individual is the devil in my story. But isn't it funny, her husband adores her and her children think she's magnificent, because to them she is. But her role in my story wasn't to be magnificent. It was to push me to my outer limits. So what am I supposed to be angry at that? I'm in gratitude for that. And you say you're sitting in there watching all this going, oh my gosh. Everybody truly is a gift.
I feel like I just felt my heart open up.
Yeah. right?
For real.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, then at that stage, it was kind of like there was, other than those guides telling me, if you choose to go back in, the bar is going to get set a little bit higher. You're going back in with some unusual gifts. I didn't have the healing thing before. I could see things, know things, talk to the dead people and all that stuff, which was all grand. That was fine. And then now all of a sudden I go in, it's like I'm touching someone and it's like this download comes into my brain. And it's not about what color underwear people are wearing. It's about what's relevant to their healing, which might be very surprising to them. Do you know?
Yep.
Might be very shocking to them. Yeah, so that was, I've been doing it ever since. Once you've had that near-death experience, I know some people who go into depression after. I have a very dear friend who Peter Bedard, and his work is called, you guys would love to interview him, Convergence Healing. But Peter had a very similar experience in his death process getting out. But he came back in and he was pissed. He did not want to be here. He had been a dancer and he got smashed. His legs were shot, like he was furious, like everything that he had defined himself to be. And so he went into a deep depression. So his process called Convergence Healing was all about how he got himself off the floor. And that it was his life's purpose. So his near-death experience had to be different than mine. I was like, put me back in. Woo! And he was like, that kid from Christmas Story, Ralphie, when he's climbing up and the Santa Claus boots him in the face. That was Peter, He was like, no.
Perfect visual.
Meanwhile, I'm just like, give it all to me, all of it, So I recognize and understand everyone doesn't have that experience. Everybody doesn't look at hardship. My daughters are hysterical because they're just like, they've grown up with me. I'm a loon. Oh, you didn't get into the college? Yay. Oh, I'm sorry you didn't get that interview because the next thing's coming. Do you know,
exactly.
And then you have to pretend. You have to pretend to be upset.
That's wild.
So the greatest gift in my life so far has been menopause.
Oh.
Because I am so tethered to what's happening physically. So I've been in all the feels. I'm like talking and my face is going red and I just start laughing. It is hilarious. And it has been really great at letting me feel because I do tend to be very excitable and happy all the time. It clicks in for a second and I'm like, I'm really angry right now.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but I get it for a split second where I can be hurt and devastated. So at least it lets me touch some of those emotions that I have forgotten. It's like right now, everybody's like, oh my God, she's going to hit hard when her mom dies. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Oh.
I am not. I'm here. I have no regret.
Right.
My time with her has been so precious and I've allowed her to see that, allowed her to know that our conversations and the things that we needed to work through in our karmic journey, we've had them. Yeah. So I think when people get paralyzed with grief, it's because they've got some boxes that weren't checked. I'm approaching, am I going to miss her terribly? You better believe it. But am I going to roil in my sadness and then my life ceases or my reason to live? No, I can tell you that right now. No, cool. I have no regrets.
So cool. When you came back, was it one of those instantaneous things or did they say okay, it's time to go back and you felt your spirit go back?
I remember the last thing I remember is the bar is going to be raised. And I'm like, okay,
whoa.
Bye. And I remember it's as tangible as this cup of coffee that I'm holding right here. I remember going into my body and it was like all of my heaviest clothes wet, all on me at the same time.
Ick.
Really heavy feeling gross. And just it's almost like claustrophobic, right? Did it feel
it's the reason why I have a very, on the odd occasion, you'll see my fingernails painted, but on the vast majority of time, I feel suffocated when there's nail polish on top of my nails.
Wow, yeah.
And that's the way it feels being in a body for me.
Wow.
Nobody's suffocating, whatever, but I'm like, But the other thing that people tend to forget is that just because you're in the meat suit and you get the idea that you're the spirit driving around the suit, your expanse is much larger than that. Your suit occupies a portion of the space that your spirit does, but we don't like to give that imagery to people because then they get too big for their britches. And then they think, oh, I can do anything. And so, we've got a radius. And so some of us can see it. I can see you before you walk into the room. I can feel that. Picture if you took an apple and you ate all around, and then you've got the top of the apple, the bottom, and then it gets skinny in the center. That's what we call a torus wave. So the energy field looks like a torus wave coming off the heart. And so when you're looking at someone when they come in and they're like, well, what's my aura? I get asked this everywhere I go. That's why I don't go to parties. What's my aura look like? What color is it? And I'm like, no. But it's always fluctuating. It's always changing. It's always moving. It's responding directly via frequency to everything happening around you. So then, drop the down low on them is that the whole atmosphere around you is designed to respond to your frequency. So mastering it here, this is why Tesla said, every variation of 3, 6, and 9 is the key to operating within this realm. So when you are manipulating a population, when you are changing people's health, when you are affecting their mental states, it is in some variant of a 3, a 6, and a 9 via frequency.
So fun. So fascinating.
Are we allowed to share some of that information? Yes, because we're approaching a time where the vibration here changes slightly, but Earth continuously sets and resets. That's why there's footprints left behind for us that, we've come up from the caves, we've crawled out of the oceans and all, and that happens in a space of a period of time. So the old kind of mythical 26,000 year thing is steeped in reality. Mm-hmm. Earth is cyclical. I know that the divine is at the wheel all the time, not just when it suits my agenda. And that's when we become a grown-up. When we are not tearing people down and when we are not fighting with others because, but my candidate.
Absolutely.
Please. You either believe God's at the wheel or you don't. It's not ... only when or if it suits. No, all the time. So It's a really exciting time to be alive because we're only halfway through one of those cycles and everybody's like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Sorry, guys. Yes, but there's an alien ship approaching and it'll be here at May 26. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, yay, I hope it lands in my backyard.
I hope it does too. If it does, I'm coming to visit.
You'll be there. You'll be in Ireland.
I will.
And so, it's one of those things where there's so much here, there's so much unfolding. So when you kind of start living with that freedom, when you start taking those risks and taking those chances, like I just walked away from I've been 26 years in Ireland. I pressed pause on a timeline and I jumped timelines into my past and I've come back here to see my mom out.
I love it.
But what if you don't have, what if you don't have anything to go back to? Okay.
Yeah.
So, last I checked, I think I'm quite talented and I can probably find a way to make a living.
Absolutely.
New timeline.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I think
that's why I thoroughly enjoy watching these NDEs, these near-death experience stories, because it has given me such a new perspective on life itself and death. And it makes me just feel like, God, I should just be thankful for having this experience. And it is just a blip. It's so quick.
It's just a blip. But it's also, I'm like, really? Do you want to blip on fear?
No, right.
The amount of people that who are terrified.
Exactly. So for our listeners sitting at their desk right now, maybe they're holding back from making a change that they know they probably should. What did dying teach you about fear and trusting yourself?
My catchphrase, is you already are that which you seek, period. That sums it up for me. Rather than being so concerned about trying to seek out your spirituality, know that you are that. It is infallible. And that you came here to get your hands dirty, to be in the trenches, to make bad choices, to mess up, to find your way out, to learn how to say, I'm sorry, to go and just love.
Yes.
And that was the whole point of being here. And you put yourself here. Just live your lives, guys. Go quit the job, take the risk. Don't, that's very irresponsible. But at your age, you don't have a savings account. Yeah, but I also love my work and I'll be working till the day I die. By choice, because I like what I do. This idea of saving up so that I can sit back and sit on my butt when I'm 65, I'm like, nah, It might work for some people. It's not on my agenda. So I don't have any fear about that. Do you know?
It's so wild. As you're like talking about this, it reminded me of my most recent tattoo. It's in my own handwriting, but it's you can F up and I'll still love you. And it's a love letter to myself of just like,
you better learn how to say that word out loud if you're moving to Ireland.
Yeah, there you go.
Grannies at 90 say it.
Actually, I'm surprised you censored yourself, Heidi, because you don't.
I always drop F-bombs on this podcast, but I just learned that one of my sister's friend's daughter listens to this, and she's like, I like Heidi. She says the F-bomb a lot. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed.
Shout out Dakota.
I know. All right. You can fuck up and I'll still love you. And that's to
Absolutely.
myself. Because there is no wrong choice. It's as long as I'm making a choice and I'm doing something because I want to do it, that's the right choice.
Yeah.
It's always the right choice. Even if you have to learn something, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Mary Helen,
I'm feeling so pumped up.
Yes, you truly are spatial. Like,
Thank you.
Love every single layer of you. It's incredible. It's incredible. And I love your story. I'm so glad we got to get you on. But before we go, is there anything that our listeners could do to help you and your platform?
Just share. And that's, the share with your friends. And I do realize it's like I'm the kind of queen of letting people off the hook. Do you know? Like, I like that moniker. It's like, stop worrying about what you did. If you messed up with somebody, go say sorry. Get on with it. And if they don't accept your apology, that has nothing to do with you. Stop getting caught up in all of this nonsense. It's just a time waster. It's a diversion from all the extraordinary stuff that you've come here to do.
Mic drop.
Yeah, right. Well, clearly this was meant to be. I am so glad we could have you on our podcast, Mary Helen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we just manifested this.
Oh, yeah.
I vividly remember being glued to my phone, watching her YouTube interview, staying up late, but just being so entranced by her and it literally changing my life and thinking immediately, we need to interview her. And we just freaking did. Like this is the conscious creation at work, people. This is amazing.
All because of that little share button on my phone. I'm like, bloop, Heidi will like this. Send.
Yep. Well, even remember, you even said something like you almost didn't send it to me, but you had a nudge. You're like, I wasn't going to send it to you because it was an hour and a half. But then I had this nudge and then I sent it to you.
This is just yet again another confirmation for me that none of us have anything to fear. And seeing her live her life so fearlessly, so boldly, it makes me want to be a better person.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it makes me think about how much I shrink myself for others, and that doesn't make me a better person. What makes me live my best life is to voice what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And then it's the ripple effect. Like you raising yourself and being big, it allows other people to do that around you.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy? I just realized that my biggest takeaway is actually not even her whole death experience, but just her presence and the way she carries herself because she's had that experience, even those prior childhood experiences. She just radiates authenticity, and I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, and I strive to be that. So that was my big takeaway.
Yeah.
Nothing more to say there.
There were so many times where I literally put my hand on my heart because I just felt the impact of what she was saying in my soul. And I could almost feel that her dad was a preacher because it was like she was a preacher. And I feel, maybe our voice lands the same way to other people and they feel that impact of our words as well too. That's my hope.
We're just behind a microphone, not behind a pulpit.
Yeah. It's the same. It's modern day pulpits. Basically.
Okay, I know this episode was super long already, so let's just keep it simple. And Heidi, I still want you to pull a tarot for us if you're willing.
Yeah.
And if you're new here, Heidi does this every week just to kind of get a read for the energy of what we should focus on as a collective for the week.
So I got my oracle cards today. So these are my Earth Magic oracle cards. And I just like them because they just kind of remind us what we should focus on in kind of a different way than tarot does. And here we go. Here's the flyer. Oh my gosh. So this one actually, I feel like it's just to remind us about how we are so all connected. But I got ancestors, which also says generations, and we are all interwoven and connected, and all of that energy and that lineage, it's still there. Like that energy can't be destroyed. So as she was talking, everything, it just all makes sense of how energy just kind of gets passed down too. And we're all here to learn and grow and evolve. And sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. But if we don't, we come back and we learn and we try again. And it's just a beautiful reminder of like all of those connections. Like even looking at this card, everything is interwoven.
And maybe even those ancestors were actually ourselves in a past life.
Absolutely. We're always protected. We are always guided.
I'm so glad we had this conversation today. If you're looking for more about Mary Helen or want to contact her, all of her information is going to be in our show notes. But if this story also resonated with you, please like and share and send it to someone that you think needs to hear it. Like Mary Helen said, spread the word.
Spread the word. Rate and review, baby.
Unless it's mean. Don't be mean. No.
Hey, it doesn't matter. They can do that.
Speak your truth.
Speak your truth.
Speak your truth. If you don't like it, that's fine.
No skin off my back. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep saying what I'm saying. I'm not going to change me. Sorry.
We will still be here. We'll be here for you next week, ladies and gents. All right. Well, until next time, it's your move, sis.
Make it count.
Bye. Bye.